Man like Mark Sullivan, the warrior yourself. Stay tuned for the thrilling episode. Woo!
A positive mental attitude can clear away all obstacles which stand between you and your major purpose in life.
This is the Snowboard Project featuring Mark Sullivan and the Bead. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
Welcome back to the Snowboard Project. I'm Mark Sullivan.
And I'm the Beav, and we are here at the Hot Water Inn for episode number
three.
Number three,
yeah.
Who's our guy today?
Today we got Gags, Mike Gagliardi from Never Summer. He's the original and still sales manager at Never Summer Snowboards.
And why is Gags a guy that you want to interview or that you wanted to reach out to? I mean, most of us don't know who Gags is and what his contribution was to our sport.
Right. Well, if you work at or own a snowboard shop, chances are you've heard of or you've met Gags because he is a guy who is legendary on the shop circuit. I mean, he's a guy who's really helped develop the brand of Never Summer from kind of like a garage operation into one of the largest brands of snowboarding. And a lot of that has been due to Gags's ability to create relationships with shops and maintain those relationships over a long period of time.
Now, Gags wasn't always Never Summer's guy, was he?
No, well, I mean, for Never Summer, yes, actually, he was like the original sales manager. When they were ready to have a sales manager, Gags was the first one, still that guy.
No way.
But you know, he started out as a headhunter in Chicago, which you wouldn't think that like a headhunter from the healthcare industry would be a guy in the snowboarding industry,
Right.
But it just goes to show. And this is really about like following your passion. Gags was passionate about snowboarding. He ended up leaving Chicago, moving to Colorado, figuring out a way to take any job in the snowboard industry just to pursue his passion, and then was able to take his background in sales and kind of overlap that with work in the snowboard industry. So pretty interesting background, amazing guy, and anyone who knows Gags, they have his back.
How do you know Gags? How did you guys become friends, and why do you think it's pertinent to have him on the show?
Well, I met Gags. I don't know when I met Gags, but I've known him for at least a decade. He's just this guy who's like, you know, he's got this like, he's a sales guy. So he kind of glad hands. And he's really like just a good guy, you know, like a sales personality. But he's also actually genuinely a good guy, fun to hang out with, really gives more than he takes. And so I saw that in him, that he was one of these people who really respected the people that he worked with on a high level. And really, it's like, so take a shop, for instance. It's like, he's not going to just sell the shop anything that they want to order. He's going to make sure that it's the right product, the right gear for their market, and make sure that they don't order too much, they order the right amount of stuff. And so he has really become a partner with the retailers for Never Summer. And because of that, you have seen Never Summer explode into one of the world's largest snowboarding brands.
It's pretty sick. So this is kind of one of those interviews where we're going to learn just a lot about like business and the business of, or we're going to learn about
and
history.
Following your passion and doing what you love.
Yeah. Should we kick it off?
Number 3, Mike Gagliardi.
Don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
So today I'm going to be sitting down with Gags, Mike Gagliardi. He is the director of sales for Never Summer. And you have a couple other things you do. You're a part owner in a beer company, part owner in Never Summer. Any other irons in the fire that I'm not aware of?
Still a dad to my 23-year-old, and that's a job that'll never end. And my son he's actually brewing down at Declaration. Yeah, I'm a partner in Declaration Brewing here in Denver.
Cool.
I got a minor piece of Never Summer. I've been with them for 23 years now, and I get to sell fun. It's been a kick, you know.
Yeah, fun and drunkenness, which can be fun, but you can take that too far too. The cool thing about being a part owner in a beer company is basically you can go anywhere you want in the world and drink a couple of beers and then write off the trip.
Well, that's what I did for my accountant's like, you guys going to Belgium? You know, you can write that off. Like, just keep track of who you're talking to. I'm like, hell yeah, absolutely. If I can write off going to Belgium and drinking beers, I'm going to do that.
Right, and so what country on the planet doesn't have beer? Or doesn't brew beer, you know?
Yeah, it's brewed everywhere. It's been brewed for, 5,000 years. And I'm just lucky to have some really smart partners, and that's been my philosophy everywhere, man. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are, which isn't hard for me, actually. But going out in the backcountry, man, I always want to be around with people that know the backcountry better than I do. And my partners in the brewing company, geez, between the three protagonists there, there's like 9 degrees from Colorado School of Mines. Our brewmaster is a PhD in chemistry, so they're making stuff that really finishes well. I don't know if you knew Marco, MFM's one of our partners, Pat
MFM?
Milbury.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so I mean, we have definitely deep roots in the snow industry too. Mike, who started it up, Mike Blandford started up with Greg and Professor Paul Aga. He actually started Develop Clothing. He worked in the industry a little, for a number of years actually before he kind of got the take into finishing up all of his degrees and brewing beer.
Wow.
So
okay, so quick question outside.
Got a nice little tap room.
So quick question outside of snowboarding, like what are your 3 favorite beers outside of the ones you're actually producing? Because I know there's a little bit of bias there, I'm sure. So what are your 3 favorite beers that kind of before you became involved with the beer company?
Before I got invested with the beer company, all right. Well, PBR has always been an action sports beer.
Yeah.
And since my buddy Sticks was working for PBR, I used to slug a lot of that down.
Okay.
And honestly, after you go mountain biking, I can't go for the dankest IPA out there ever, man. I mean, it's right now, if I'm not going to drink one of ours, I throw a Keystone Light or a Coors Light in there or something because, hey, it's basically rehydrating.
Yeah. 2 birds, 1 stone.
2 birds, 1 stone. Exactly.
That would be pretty interesting, actually.
1 Keystone.
That would be pretty interesting to have a beer that was infused with like electrolytes or something.
Well, that's we're probably not far off of that.
Okay.
Like I said, I got some smart partners.
Okay, so that sounds like it. So do you guys have a lager? Let's plug your lager beer because generally the lighter beers or the easier drinking beers are lager beers. What's your lager?
Oh, well, we just came out with actually Centurion Pilsner, which is a collaboration that we did with Denver Water.
Okay.
And this stuff is super crushable. We just had a party with them. It's celebrating Denver Water's 100th year, and it's actually all made from reclaimed water. So, at first you go, whoa, and then you know that water is like it's cleaner than the stuff that comes out of your tap. It really like purify it. And again, we've got some good scientists in our quiver, and so does Denver Water. But that Denver Pilsner is amazingly crushable.
So your recycling system is a guy at a urinal slugging a beer?
No, we put a couple of used oil filters from my Yamaha.
Yeah.
Between that and the mash tanks.
Yeah.
Super clean. Great summer beer. We have another beer called Electric Silk, which is a lot heavier. It's an oatmeal IPA. Delicious beer. I'm all about our Nalu, which is our Imperial IPA. You only need to drink 1 or 2 of those, and you're, feeling pretty good on your back porch.
Yeah.
Cool. In other beers, geez, man, I mean, I was weaned on Miller High Life when I was 16, 17, 18,
Yep.
and playing disc golf with Moonlighter Frisbees, back in the 70s on the local golf course with my buddies and a case of High Life.
Yeah. I have put down a couple of High Lifes, 1 or 2 in my time. Okay, but anyhow, let's get to the meat of this. I do enjoy learning about beer and hearing about the different things in your life. You're a pretty interesting guy, Mike. But you
come down, I'll buy you a couple.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. I will be in Colorado at some point. That's a guarantee. I'm a snowboarder, so Colorado is definitely on the circuit. But
as well it should be.
I think that you've achieved kind of this level of success in snowboarding, and you're known as a guy who is like easily approachable. You follow up with everyone. You're good at what you do, as far as being a sales guy, and sales guys, they kind of run this spectrum of like just this real hard sell, used car salesman guys to guys who just, I don't know, they're just, they don't call you back, or whatever, and you're trying to buy something from them. And you seem like you're this guy who strikes this balance between, getting the job done and being easygoing, And I think that's a pretty enviable thing for a lot of people. So what I'd like to tap into is kind of your origin story in snowboarding and how you got to be this master sales director.
Good grief. Are you sure you only have an hour?
I got all the time in the world for you, Gags.
Right on, brother. No, I appreciate that, Mark. With snowboarding, man, when I saw John DeMartin's Snurfer, I grew up outside New York City, and we're all sledding over at this country club across the way, Bonnie Briar, where I used to go moonlight frisbeeing, and I might have been 9, 10 years old or something, and we would stand up on our sleds, whatever, and then John DeMartin got this Snurfer. And that was the coolest damn thing I had ever seen.
What year is this about?
Oh God, we're talking early 70s.
So this is like Brunswick Corporation?
Maybe even late 60s, 69, 70.
Wow.
And I thought that was the coolest thing. And this just hit me. I remember going to summer camp like in 71, and there was an old water ski that, at summer camp that nobody was using. And I'm like, hey, I want to turn that into a Snurfer. This guy on my block has it. You're not going to turn that fine piece of mahogany into a toy, son. This guy was running the wood shop, was like, oh, well, the next year I'm walking along beach on Long Island Sound with like my mom and my grandma, my sister. I must have been 11 or 12. And I found a water ski that had washed up on shore. And I'm like, Mom, can I take that home? And of course, I took the skeg off of it and used to just try to stand on it going down the hill. It was so inadequate, but it was. It was
on par with everything else available at the time, more or less, right?
At the time. Hey, water ski bindings on there. That was shit. If I had turned those sideways, I'd have been onto something.
Yeah, you would have been a pioneer. You would have been like, we would be riding Gags boards right now or something.
Gags boards. So Fast forward to me out of college now, and I finally got a Snurfer. Dude, I must have sold off what at the time would have been worth about $500 or $600 worth of these old American Flyer trains that we had that were my older brothers, and they were out of the house in their own jobs, and I sold off. My mom was so fucking pissed. All these, to buy a Snurfer, and I got the yellow gem Snurfer. I was so stoked. I think I was like a junior or senior in high school. I remember taking it to college and snurfing with my buddy Billy Coons, and just had a blast, but never thought much more of it. And then a couple years later, I'm out of college. I'm in the professional world in Chicago. I'm a corporate headhunter.
Corporate headhunter.
I don't know if head honker. Yeah, I'm. For the audience that doesn't know what a headhunter is, we find jobs for people and people for jobs. And I worked in the driest of industries, the insurance industry.
Ooh.
Now, talk about not being married to your job. I mean, I would spend, a couple of weeks a year trying to follow the dead on vacation, and a couple of weeks, going skiing. But my right around the corner from me was this shop in Chicago called Windward Sports. I lived right by Wrigley Field. And I would walk by it every day, and then all of a sudden I saw a Barfoot and a Sims and a Winter Stick and a Burton in there. I'm like, holy shit, that's like my Snurfer, only like on steroids, like just much better.
Yeah. So which one did you get? What was your first board, like real snowboard?
Burton Cruiser.
Burton Cruiser. So that was probably the lowest hanging fruit at the time, right? And
that was all the flex of a 2x4, yes. Had the skeg in the middle. It's the same graphics that came on the brushy board like back in the early 90s, with the orange, yellow, the stripes. But I proposed to my wife on a skiing vacation in Breckenridge. I flew her out there for her birthday. It was like my third time skiing. And I kept on talking about this, those cool like Snurfer things and snowboards. And for my wedding gift, we honeymooned in Breck. Back in 86, 87 season, February 87, and she gave me a snowboard for my wedding gift. I gave her a string of pearls, and I got the much better deal.
Well, you got the wife out of the deal too. You got the wife out of the deal too that you're still with to this day. So
I got the wife out of the deal. I'm still married to 31 years later.
So she really did make a good move too, because you knew you found the right one, because it took your life in a new direction, right?
This was part of her motivation. She wanted to move out west anyway, This was all part of her ulterior motive plan. Mm-hmm. But, I snowboarded. God, that first day, it probably took me 2 hours to go down, like, the bunny hill.
Yep.
And skeg in the middle of that board and just falling like a son of a bitch. But I was hooked. Learned how to turn. That first day was Lincoln turns, and from being a skateboarder back in the 70s, and just always being kind of a sideways person.
Okay, so after you started, how long did it take you to actually make the move, pull up stakes and move out west?
We moved out to Colorado in August of 91 from Chicago. And I was just spending so much time. I already had, by 91, I already had like 3 snowboards and my original Snurfer. I don't know where that water ski went. I just, we got to move out west. I'm over this. My father passed away, and that was a big impetus, man. He should have been playing golf in Florida, and he was still working in an office at 72. And I'm like, I don't want to be in this office till I'm 72. I don't want to live this way. This isn't me. And so she got a job with Relo out here. I came out, and I was interviewing around, and then I was going through, I think Snowboarder hit me with a buyer's guide, and I went down the list of all these companies that were listed in snowboard. I'm like, hey, these guys are in Boulder. And it was Aggression Snowboards.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of Aggression before, but I'm like,
Matt
sure.
Nipper,
hey,
right? Matt Nipper.
Matt Nipper, and obviously Dowd and Tarquin.
Yeah.
And within, like, I went in there and interviewed with them. And I'm like, well, I've done sales the last couple of years, but I got an engineering degree from Lafayette College. And, oh, you're an engineer? We just lost the guy running our wood shop. Do you think? And they showed me everything in the wood shop. And I'm like, I've done, stuff before like this. I'm not afraid of it. I'll be meticulous. And so they started me at like $6 an hour shaping cores for the Aggression snowboards. And that was it was before the Blue Shotgun. This is, I want to say like September, October 91.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I'm having conversations with Dave Dowd, and I'm meeting Steve Link and Kevin Delaney and freaking Coughlin's coming through our shop, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm meeting all these guys in the magazine. These are guys that, I have a ton of, that I want to be like. And obviously I was, at that point I was 31. I was well beyond being like those guys. I mean, they'd been developing skills since the early 80s. And I just like followed, got to go riding with some of my idols and snowboarding 50, 60 days a year with the Aggression crew and going up to Eldora and Loveland and A Basin and having a blast. And I went from being a VP of a headhunting firm with 4 or 5 people working for me to $6 an hour. I couldn't tell you how much happier I was.
It's funny how that is. It's like if you do what you love. It's like in the measurement. Like some people they use money as the primary measure of success. And money does come into play, like sending your kids to college or whatever. But ultimately, it's is that going to give you the same kind of or same level of happiness that pursuing your passions will?
I wasn't even honestly, at 31, I wasn't even thinking about my future as far as financial stability or anything like that, or buying a house. I was thinking, and honestly, we as a human race, we need to enjoy our lives more, throw more high fives and less bullshit. Yep. And I knew, my thought was, you're a salesperson. And I was of the headhunting,
Yeah.
A lot of people have that salesperson image that you put out there, Mark, that, they're sharks. Mm-hmm. They would sell their mom down the river for a commission. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of good ones. And I try to be a Zen headhunter, man. I'm fucking around with somebody's career. Somebody who might have 2 or 3 kids. They got a mortgage. So I listened, and that's the one thing that what really taught me how to sell was listening to people and finding common ground and relations with them. Mm-hmm. And like, hey, if it's not the right time to either sell somebody on a line or to get them out on an interview because of whatever situation, I'm like, hey, not a worry, man. Do you know anybody else who might consider it? And hey, we'll get back to you next year. I just treated everybody with respect, the kind of respect that I would like to be treated with. Mm-hmm. And, it kind of works out. And I find the people that are full of shit, too. And honestly, I will treat you the way you treat me. If you treat me with the respect, you come clean and listen and talk and engage, I'm going to do the same with you. If you treat me like a piece of shit, I will not treat you or I won't work with you, period. Yeah. Or I'll ignore you. I just, to me, it's like I'm messing around with somebody's income. I'm messing around with somebody's job. I'm messing around with how they pay their bills in their shop, staff their shop. We all depend on some success here to work and to, foist too much product on somebody or to jam somebody into a job that they can't handle or shouldn't do. It wasn't right to me. And it's the same thing. I'd rather sell somebody 10 or 12 snowboards and have them sell through 10 or 12 snowboards than foist 18 or 20 on them and have them sit on 8 snowboards at the end of the year and have to do capital recovery and not make a profit on the brand. And that goes for 150 or 200 snowboards or whatever. I mean, listen to your customers. Find out what their needs are. If you can address their needs, great. If you need to ratchet them back, if somebody gets like too pie in the sky, you need to talk them down off that ledge too. And
how many other sales managers are trying to tell people, hey, I think that's maybe a little bit, you're being a little too ambitious with your order here. How many people do that in this industry? Because that's a pretty radical thought.
My friend Mark. You know what? I think a lot more people are they're getting smarter that way.
Yeah.
They're adapting to being smart with their customers. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some customers that can't sell the whole line or shouldn't sell the whole line. They should focus and hey, these are the boards that are going to work for you in your market. And a lot of guys do know that. But a lot of guys, they need a little bit of guidance, and a lot of times the reps, they need to give them that proper guidance. So the shop is here 5, 10, 20 years down the line. Mm-hmm. We have there's a ton of shops that looked to get too big, expanded, whatever. And it's like if somebody was in their ear saying, "Hey, listen, man, baby steps. Let's walk down there." Like that old line from Colors, man. De Niro to Sean Penn. Let's walk down there and fuck them all.
Don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
Hey, what's up, guys? Beav here. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, please consider donating to our Patreon page, patreon.com/The Snowboard Project. This week, we're going to be raffling off a Burton Elite snowboard. Go throw down a couple bucks, help support snowboard media.
I'm basically giving away 30 years of snowboarding history that I've collected, and I've been lugging this stuff around for 30 years, and now it's time to put it in some good hands.
The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
So you make this transition. You're working in the wood shop, $6 an hour, right? And then you make a transition into the world of sales. I'm imagining that if you jump from the wood shop to sales, you start at the bottom as a tech rep or a sales rep for a smaller brand.
Well, for me, and I took actually, I talked to Apocalypse, and I told, I want to sell for you.
Jacqueline?
And then I realized I wasn't ready. Financially, everything. I was still working at Aggression. I was not ready. And I called Apocalypse back after about a month. I'm like, guys, I'm not ready for this yet. And
turns out they weren't ready for you either. Hindsight.
Well, I was fortunate enough to get Nipper from Aggression was fortunate enough to refer me to Vince at the boardroom. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it at the time. Vince was the very first Sims rep, here in Colorado. I go into the boardroom, and I was just blown away. We had 30, 40 different snowboards on the floor. The guy was amazingly knowledgeable, killer staff. And I started talking to him. I'm like, Vince, I want to start selling boards. And actually, at this point, I'd also been talking with Chuck Barfoot.
Okay.
And I was very fortunate that Barfoot had just lost their rep here. I was talking with Greg Navander, who was the sales manager there. And I didn't know much about Atlantic Skates. But I was like, Barfoot, are you kidding me? That is, at that point, they had John Boyer, Don Schwartz.
Yep.
They had a Devin Walsh, good little team, and I didn't realize Barfoot was kind of on the way down, and it was being kind of held back by Atlantic Skates,
Yeah.
But I was like, absolutely, I want to rep for Barfoot. I got Barfoot. I got this stomp pad company, Billiard, that had 8-ball stomp pads. The Mad Hatters or the Hat Matters, whatever that was. the Cat in the Hat hats and all. And Dave and Tina, those guys were rad. And Black Spoon, which Black Spoon was probably the most, punk rock fun company to work for of all those. God, we just had a blast. So I worked for Vince, doing rentals on like Friday and Saturday. Since I was working for V Under the Table, I collected unemployment. I was tuning skis and snowboards. I took an ad in the Golden newspaper, and I was tuning skis and snowboards in my basement and repping and trying to pull in cash any way I could. At least my wife had a steady job.
Uh-huh.
And we actually, at that point, we had moved from downtown Golden into we had a mortgage and a kid on the way.
Okay, time to get serious, right?
I was ready to bust chops, man. That kid was everything to me.
Yep.
I mean, I was, and still is. So Yeah, I just went on the road. I'd work for Vince, make as much money as I can, and just try to piece together work. And all of a sudden, things started getting a little bit better for me. I noticed Never Summer coming into Tim and Tracy. They'd come into the boardroom and drop off boards. And I think the boards at this point were all T-nut only, but I could everybody in the shop was just gaga about the Never Summer boards. Mm-hmm. And so I approached Tracy and, hey, you know what? You guys probably could use a rep. And I'd like to be your rep, man. I mean, I think, I'm willing to I'm traveling this state. I'm traveling Utah. I'm traveling New Mexico. I'm all about selling good product. Well, I pursued Tracy for about a year. Uh-huh. They weren't ready yet. They didn't have any reps. Mm-hmm. And, I can remember being at SIA. Customers would oh, yeah, we have an appointment over at Never Summer. They'd see Barfoot and then walk over and, leave something. I'd walk over to Never Summer and, hey, how you doing? Hey, yeah, I'm not really hiring. I'm no, hey, I'm just dropping this off for my customer. They left it at my booth. Lori, it was great to see you. You guys have a good meeting, hey, still keep on leaving that impression on Tracy.
Yeah.
And eventually, they hired me. I got in with.
So you were the first rep for Never Summer.
I was the first rep hired for Never Summer.
Was that for Colorado, or was it? You're the national sales manager. Was Never Summer selling nationwide, internationally at that point, or were they basically more or less a regional brand?
They were selling nationwide at that point, but I would say at that point, I would bet that a good 60-70% of the business at least was Colorado. Mm-hmm. But I remember he gave me one of our twin 162s, and I went up and I rode my Don Schwartz 172 Bigfoot at Winter Park. And I came down, I forget it was Cheshire Cat or whatever, and there's a cat track right in the middle. It was perfect. It was always groomed. On Cheshire, there was always a section that was groomed, and that cat track was perfect to mob down, launch, and get the perfect cat track hit. I went down on the Schwarty, went back to my car, parked in C-Lot, got on that Never Summer, and at that point I was repping for Tech 9 too, and I mounted up with the baseless bindings that kind of go to the inside. They're semi-baseless.
Yep.
And I got on that board, took it over, went off that same cat track, launched, and said, oh my fucking God, I'm repping for this company. I don't believe it. Because it was head and shoulders above the boards that were, I think Barfoot was made out of Palais at the time. Mm-hmm. I still have that Schwarty. But, that was an amazing all-mountain board for me. But the Never Summer was so smooth because of all the damping, the P-Tex sidewalls. And I just started riding the Never Summer Zone. I really liked those boards so much better than what was coming out of, the Palais factory, the Barfoot out of the Palais. And so, and I could see the writing on the wall. And I went to Chuck, and this was honestly, I left this conversation kind of holding my eyes and misting over because I had so much respect for Chuck and gave me a first shot. But I'm like, I want to rep for you guys. And I rep for Never Summer and Barfoot for one whole season. Mm-hmm. And people had Barfoot in their lineup, and they were next to a shop that would sell Never Summer. And our philosophy on distribution. We're very protective of our dealers.
Yep.
And, unless somebody gives us a reason to go to another dealer, I will live and die with a dealer. If somebody's doing 7 boards, but that's right for Angel Fire, I won't open up somebody for retail right next to them. That's just not the way we go. And people were like, well, Barfoot's cool, but you need to sell me Never Summer. I'm like, well, it's in the store 3 blocks away from you. I can't do that. Well, say goodbye to your Barfoot order. And I felt like shit, because I had to hold the line on sales and not expand distribution and screw the other dealers. Yeah. And so I went up to Chuck. I'm like, Chuck, I think at this point I need to leave because I'm doing 3 times the volume with Never Summer. Not really. I'm having a hard time keeping us in brands and our brand in the shops that we're in, because people are trying to leverage me, and I don't want it. I don't want it to hurt you. And God, that was a hard conversation to have, but I could see the future with Never Summer. And again, Dorsey Truett, Atlantic Skates, not a decent guy, but he threw nickels around like they were freaking manhole covers, There just wasn't any spending on backing the brand. He wanted a cash register instead of to put effort into it.
Right.
And I could see Never Summer coming on, and man, I was all about. I remember doing, side-by-side demos with Barfoot and Never Summer, and people would come back freaking. And I was one of the guys that really started. I knew that Yusko, who was doing Burton at the time, and Larry Zaret's operation, Jay Stevens doing Sims. They were pushing demos.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Lucera with Nitro, and so I really put a strong emphasis into setting up a demo program. And I really put a lot of the success of Never Summer in this region, and eventually the growth out to other regions, on the fact that I was at the base of Snowbird turning screws, base of Brighton turning screws, base of you name the mountain. Back at that point, it wasn't a hassle to go up to like Breckenridge. You didn't have to sign 5 forms and pay $5,000 to do a demo. You could just say, hey, get all of the marketing events. Hey, we'd like to do a demo. As long as you got the liability insurance, you were good to go.
Right, you were adding value to their customers.
Absolutely. It's a little added bonus at the Hill, a free demo here, this, that. And it's unfortunately a lot of that. Some of the smaller resorts still get that. Some of the bigger resorts still do get that too. But it's become more of a challenge. But getting out and putting people on the boards and demos, to me, that was the best part of the job. And honestly, if I could do demos and get paid what I get paid now, that's what I do.
That's not happening, Gags. That's not happening.
It's not happening. No. But yeah, demo days, and it got to be, we had a whole big team. It was always a party at the base of the hill. I'd bring 5, 6 people. We'd have 3 people in the tent, 2 on each table, 1 guy doing paperwork. Rest of you guys, if you're not out riding, honestly, you're fired. And we'd go out and we'd ride and do demos and then travel to the next hill and have a blast. And, it'd be sometimes it'd be me, 1 other person. Sometimes there'd be 4 of us. Sometimes there'd be 8 of us, all dressed in our gaper suits at the base of Targhee, in a snowstorm. Half of us riding, half of us doing the demo. Just a great time in snowboarding too. It was just tons of fun.
And it was growing really rapidly. The sport was expanding.
Absolutely. At that point, mid to late 90s and early 2000s, we were just pigs in mud, man. It was super fun. And it became a little bit of a challenge, of course, as more and more snowboard companies came on, more and more people, ski companies getting in and giving never dating and all that. And we've never been that company. We've always given incentives, for paying, upon ship and whatnot. But with protecting our dealers, with having the philosophy that, hey, you go home from the prom with the girl you took to the prom, unless she really starts acting up. We would protect our dealers, and they loved us for that. And we would much rather, and I know this kind of went against the philosophy, of the industry at the time, but we'd be all about, I'd much rather have the kid in the shop riding my board who was a pretty decent rider, had a great attitude, rather than having somebody who was getting all these magazine spreads and all that. We would rather have the kid in the shop riding our board, because who's in there selling our boards? The kid in the shop. So we want more emphasis on taking care of our customers, getting the shop kids riding the board, and not buying into a high priced team. And it got kind of comical at the time. And snowboarding, I'll stand on my, I said this in one of the early Trans World or Snowboarder forums. Snowboarding absolutely needs its heroes. There's no way that snowboarding wouldn't be so prominent without the Travis Rices and Shaun Whites and the hot riders that have kind of put it on the forefront. But the guys that are really in the trenches are the shop guys. Yeah. And our loyalty was to the shops that were backing us up, giving us orders that meant something, and would give us feedback on the boards too, give us accurate feedback. I mean, we go to our shops for feedback, on what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong. And for the most part, we hear, keep on making boards like you have. You're a product-driven company. It's good to have some image. We've got great riders now, like obviously Chris Corning, Dylan Alito, Nikki Larson, Skylar Gallardo, the kids that are killing it, Sam Klein.
It seems like, though, that you've taken those guys almost from, like, the shop level or Grom level or whatever, and they've kind of been with you and grown with you, instead of, like, going out and being like, okay, who's hot right now? Boom, how much does that cost? Okay, get a hold of his agent, write the check.
Exactly. No, Dylan's kind of an exception. We brought him back into the fold, but he was riding for us a long time ago before it kind of blew up with Volcom and 32 and all that. He was riding our boards. Yeah. He's always been a homegrown Denver man and always been a good friend. It's like, me at 58 years old, I go up and I see Bobby Blumpkin, Dylan Alito, and, hanging out in a bar, and he's with a bunch of his young friends. Guys, what's up? Big hug. It's like, he's not embarrassed to, like, high-five an old man. He's a great dude. And same thing, Corning, man. That kid's been riding our board since he was, 7, 8 years old? A young kid riding up at Echo Mountain, and see him have the experiences that he's had. And he's been a loyal rider of ours for years. It means a lot to us, We are a family, definitely, within the company. And, it's just great to have kids that we've kind of seen come up through the ranks.
Yeah. Little funny story about Chris Corning. I was at the Olympics in Korea, and I'm flying home. I've been there for a month, and pretty war torn from working 22 days or 24 days in a row, whatever it was. And I'm in the airport, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grab a beer before I jump on this plane. And there are these two people sitting there, and they're Anglo people or whatever, and one of them's wearing a Never Summer shirt, and I'm like, huh. And I walk up and I'm like, you don't happen to be Chris Corning's parents? And they almost fell out of their bar stools because they were Chris Corning's parents. So we had a beer in Korea right before I left, and we talked about it, and then then I jumped on my plane, and they jumped on their plane, and we went our separate ways. But it was pretty funny that, like, that loyalty to Never Summer is also in their parents. Like, literally, it's like, who's a white person wearing a Never Summer shirt in Korea right now?
In Korea.
Yeah. So
too funny.
Yeah.
Round eye with the eagle.
Yeah.
Those guys have been part. I mean, it's great. We do a moto jam. Pretty much every year we get a bunch of us out camping somewhere where it's the Leadville motocross track or Taylor Park up on Cottonwood Pass between Crested Butte and Buena Vista, and they always come. And we've had young team riders that were like 14, 15 years old. This kid Peyton Martinez and his dad Mark and his family come up from New Mexico. We're all camping and motoing together, and it's like it's one big family. They've been just part of the family for years, and it's a nice way to grow your brand too. Just to have people really considered family from the get-go, involved in it.
Yep.
And giving in.
Yeah, and that's really something that sets Never Summer apart. I mean, it's always been a differentiated brand, but part of that is the relationships. When I go to Never Summer and I see this kind of genuine bond that you guys have as friends, you know, and the respect that I just see. It's like, it's not like even in the language, right? It's just the way that you guys treat each other, and you joke around and you have fun, and you can tell that you genuinely, everyone who works there genuinely wants to be there, you know?
Oh, absolutely. We have guys in the factory that have been there as long as 22, 23 years that have been. Bentley Blea, he started doing split boards on his own, buying press time and material from Never Summer, and then he's our split guru, man. Every one of our splits comes through his hands, and he's been building them for years. And it's like, who do you want to build your split, to look it over, to make sure that all the, there's no edge gaps, that all the materials went together properly, that your hooks and clips are drilled on there properly, and that that guy's as passionate now as he was back 20 years ago.
Man, you're making me feel pretty good about my Never Summer split board right now.
Hey, what's up? If you like what you're hearing here on the Snowboard Project, please consider donating to us on patreon.com/the Snowboard Project. Every week you get to hear me and Mark.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, Mark's there.
Sorry.
Okay.
Patreon.com/the Snowboard Project.
Okay,
Do it.
do it.
Patreon.com/the Snowboard Project.
I was really trying to be serious there, Sullivan.
Oh, sorry.
Where we are right now in our story is that Never Summer is starting to cook with fire, right? It's starting to grow pretty rapidly now, and now you're at the point where it seems like it's growing, and maybe you're going in-house. At what point did you go in-house at Never Summer?
Oh God, that was a tough decision, man. I'd already, I've been doing Tech 9, 686, NEF. Tech 9 and I kind of split because they started doing boards and clothing, and I'm like, well, I've got Never Summer and 686. I'm not going to pioneer T9 too, because they wanted me to kind of go. And so doing 686, NEF, Never Summer, a couple of summer lines, Osiris, and then Circa.
So that must have been pretty lucrative at that time, right? I mean, you're getting a 6 or 8% commission on sales from 686 and Never Summer and NEF and like all these brands that are growing or are established. It seems like that would be a pretty good commission.
It was a real tough choice, and I had Joey and Micah's lady Sarah, Micah Cook and Joey Herman, who are still with Never Summer now. Micah does our a lot of our filming and media and whatnot. And Joey's head cheerleader, demo guy, everything, sales, you name it, Joey can do it. But this was a rough choice. My son was approaching going into high school. Mm-hmm. He's a good kid, man. Every parent will say that about their kid. But
no, my kids are better than your kids, Gags.
All right, I'll see you on the soccer field. We can choke a referee together.
Okay.
No, my kid was going into high school, and at this point, I started getting the feeling of being an absentee parent. I don't know if that's the right word.
No, I know that feeling, though. I know that feeling sometimes.
I got to spend a lot of my summers with him and hanging out and traveling and all that, but winters were tough. And, to say I'm a little type A at this point was an honor. I had to have my hands in everything, and that's probably one of my worst skills is delegation. So I had my hands in everything, and I just, you know what? I've got to ratchet this back and spend more time with my son. My son was, at that point, he got into football. And I'd exposed him to hockey. He didn't want to play hockey. He didn't want to, he really wasn't that into winter sports. He can go up and either ski or snowboard off like a 10-foot cliff, but he just wasn't into it. He's a good athlete. He was playing football. I'm like, you know what? When he's in high school, I want to be around more. And I talked to Tracy about coming in-house, and Sean was at that point running longboards, and
Sean McAllister, you're talking about.
Sean McAllister.
Great guy. Great guy.
And I had the impression that he just wasn't as into the snow. Like, Sean wasn't snowboarding that much. He was going up 4 or 5 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was still so committed to it. And, Sean and Tracy and I talked, and Sean wanted to run the longboard end of it and develop that. And I was ready for a change to come in-house. And, to me, it was something that I wanted to focus on one thing as far as work and put more focus on to spending time with my son. And so I kind of took the dive from a 1099, but also dealing with my own taxes, running a business essentially.
Yep.
And I took a lot of those headaches out of my life, and I was able to be around for every one of my kids' football games, hanging out with his and my son and I, we have an amazing relationship. He's working, like I said, as a brewer down at my bar right now, or at the brewery at my bar, and I just wanted to be around a lot more for my son, and it was great to kind of ratchet everything back a little bit. I still kind of worked the Colorado territory, but I got to know accounts across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you were already the sales manager, or you were a rep, but you were just because you're a friendly guy, you were getting to meet kind of the guys from California or the East Coast or whatever.
Well, I knew who a lot of our accounts were, but they brought me in house, and I was still essentially working the Rocky Mountain territory for Never Summer. Still doing demos, but I was working with the accounts across the country as well. So I kind of took on a sales rep / sales manager role for a couple of years. In the last few years, we've brought Nick Workenthien out from the factory, and he's stepped into the basically the Rocky Mountain rep role at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ever become a sales manager in your own territory, you never really get away from being a rep in your own territory. I mean, your customers, they want to come to you. They want to know that things are handled. And, that's one of the things about me is, like, I return phone calls. I answer emails. I try to do all that within 24 hours, if not sooner. So
there's a little tip for you aspiring reps: 24 hours, make sure you get back to somebody.
Jesus, right? Do it in 5, do it in 4. You got your
Yeah.
fucking phone in your pocket. Answer the call.
Yeah.
You know what? And eat your goddamn vegetables first, you people. Honestly, handle the hard shit first, and everything else is easy.
Yep.
You know? I eat my vegetables first, man. If you got a bad conversation you got to go into, make the call. Don't stall it 5 days, because those 5 days shit festers.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. No. But okay. So it seems like, though, now every job you've had, you've almost either A, created for yourself, or B, asked for. Like, it didn't exist really. You were like, at Aggression, you went there and you asked for a job, kind of, or you were looking for a job. Never Summer, You went Trace for a year before he even gave you a job as a rep, right?
Are you saying nobody hands you shit? You got to go out and get it?
Yeah. So I'm asking you. Seems like that's what you're telling me.
That is 100% what I'm telling you, man. You could stand there on your corner, like, with your finger up, like at a Grateful Dead show, saying, "I need a miracle." You can make your own miracle.
Yep.
People who make their own. And honestly, I haven't made enough. I haven't made enough for myself yet, man. You got to stay hungry. So, yeah, I talked to Tracy. I'm like, I'd like to come in house, work on salary instead of on commission, and we worked out a structure for me that there was bonuses and incentives, and I was on salary, and I was able to maintain my lifestyle. The rep lifestyle is a great life. No two ways about it. It's awesome. Your time is yours as long as you bring the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I play hockey all summer with my regular crew and ne'er-do-wells, real estate agents, lawyers, and youngins that still think they're scouts in the stands. I get to play hockey with my boys in the summertime. I get, as long as I can bring Never Summer the bottom line. Bottom line is we ship our boards to our customers on time. We keep our customers happy. And we keep on growing the brand without screwing the people that have brought us to this point.
Right.
I.e. the retailers. Don't over distribute. You're going to find us in a couple of online outlets. You're not going to find us in all of them because honestly, once you're in a couple of online outlets, somebody's going to be able to find you.
Right. So why aren't you guys on Amazon? I mean, it's like, it seems like that's just like the lowest hanging fruit almost of people being like, oh, I need to make my sales numbers or whatever. Oh,
why
Amazon.
Why do you want to give up 15%?
Is that what they charge?
Why would you want to sell on Amazon? Those guys take 15% off the top. Why do you want to cut your margins? That is my answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, aren't you making more margin if you're selling just at a 15% discount, but you're doing it to full retail?
Oh, you're talking about why is Never Summer as a company not on Amazon?
Yeah.
No, that goes against the fly. Then we're competing with our retailers.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we want to go direct to consumer? This whole DTC thing is screwing the people that made snowboarding cool in the first place.
Right.
The guys like Cutting Edge and Mountain Wave, the guys that have been in the trenches for years. Why do I want to compete with the guys that brought me to this point?
It's funny because it's like...
That's a knife in the back.
Yeah, I agree because like when I started Snowboard Mag, to me the goal of the magazine, one of the goals of the magazine was to help the culture of snowboarding, which meant that like supporting the shops, because to me the shops are where the culture of snowboarding lives. And that's where like the little kid goes into a store and he feels like he's actually a part of something. Like I will never forget when I first walked into the boarding house in Burlington, Vermont, Andy Coughlin's shop. And he treated me like his equal. And I was like a 14-year-old kid at the time. And it was like, wow, this is my tribe. These are my people. They treat me, like I'm one of them. Whereas like, in everywhere else in life, people, oh, you're just a kid. Oh, you're just, oh, I'm way cooler. Or I'm insecure, so I need to front like I'm something that I'm not or whatever, And snowboarding at the shops, it's like that's where I got that connection with snowboarding, which made me do it for life. Had that not happened randomly, I might not be involved with snowboarding today. I might be a stockbroker or in business somewhere. Who knows where? But like they brought me in and made me a part of their tribe. And so those shops, and that's why we did free distribution of Snowboard magazine to the shops. We'd send 40 copies for free, and a note along with it said, hey, these magazines aren't free. If someone buys something from your shop, give it to them for free, or sell it for the cover price and keep the money. I don't want to deal with affidavit returns. I don't want to deal with all this stuff. Honestly, we were such a small staff. I mean, we were doing anything we can to hack the system, right? So
even putting Damien on the cover in a freaking OP Pro wetsuit.
But hey, that was Snowboarder. That was actually before my time. I did Snowboard magazine.
That was Snowboarder. That's right.
I did work. I did spend like 6 years at Snowboarder, or 7 years at Snowboarder, and then a little stint at Scott, and then I started Snowboard Mag. But I think we gave out like in retail value about $1 million a year to snowboard shops to try to incentivize their sales. Basically, or at least that was that was one of the reasons anyway, and that was the one that made me feel good about it, but to me it's like that culture is where snowboarding lives, and to me that's one of the problems with snowboarding today is that like where do kids interact with that culture, where does the rubber hit the road on the culture of snowboarding? Okay, maybe sitting on the lift, but how do you get that guy to sit on the lift for the first time? If you're a skateboarder and you're going to the skate shop and they sell snowboards too, you're getting exposed to that culture as well the whole time, and then eventually maybe you're like, hey, maybe I should give this a shot, And
absolutely, and Snowboard Mag was great. It was like people, places, personalities, and that's what it's about. You go out to these rad ass places, like whether it's a Bald Face or a Mount Baker or a Breckenridge or Crystal Mountain in Traverse City, Michigan. You're at like rad places. Whenever I would go up and snowboard in Wisconsin out of Chicago, if I saw another snowboarder, Devil's Head, like we were instantly bros. It was you wanted to like share your experiences. Oh man, you got like a ski boot tongue to duct tape on top of your Sorel boot. It stiffens it up a little bit. You share ideas.
Yeah.
And learning how to snowboard is not an easy thing for the first time when you try it on your. Most of us who started back, we learned it on our own.
Yep.
And give people exposure to like, well, you can try this, you can do that via the magazines, via the in-shop experience. The guy who is in the shop, they learned how to do this, obviously, and had some mistakes, and you can instantly avoid about like a full day of, oh shit time and like, wow, this is hard, by going into a shop rather than, buying it directly off Amazon or whatever. Now, hey, I use the internet for to buy a couple of things here and there, to buy gifts or whatever. But if I'm going to buy something for, say, mountain biking, I go to my local shop, man. Because those guys, they take care of them. They maintain the bike. You show up enough, they give you, they'll give you a little discount or whatever or something. And, it's the same thing with snowboarding. These shops were the lifeline for the longest time. And you can't like glean that much knowledge off the internet. I mean, there's something that's hands-on knowledge. There's a lot to be said for it,
Right. Well, if you're getting your information from magazines or the internet, it's coming at you. When you go into a shop, you can actually ask the questions. So
there's
it's like
an interaction.
You're being fed this information, but if you're like, well, how do I get this? How do I get my stance styled? You can literally go into a shop and have like an hour-long conversation about getting your stance styled in, right? Whereas if you do that online, people like, they start like shitting on you basically online, like, oh, you're such a kook, you don't know what you're doing, right? And like people are always trying to like create this hierarchy, like, oh, I'm above you or whatever. Whereas in a shop, it's like, well, the goal is to sell more product if you're on the sales floor, so you have an incentive to not be a dick, basically.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the internet can be a cruel mistress, man. But if you make a friend in a shop, and you get knowledge out of that person that you'll never find on the internet.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, I can go back to my first couple of days being in Powder at Brighton on that old Burton Cruiser and like getting in the flats and like, just things. It's just like, shit, if I was with somebody or talked to somebody that would explain, don't go out that way, it's a long flat cat track back. Just little knowledge.
Yeah.
And you find that in the shops, and you don't. The internet definitely is a cruel mistress at times.
Right. But it seems like it's also low hanging fruit, and so a lot of brands think that's the answer. They just see that as like low hanging fruit, and they have maybe a more short-term plan, like if I make my sales goal for this year, I'm good. But they're not thinking about where's our brand going to be in 5, 10, 20 years.
Oh, absolutely. And the whole direct-to-consumer model is, it's a way to get more money. It's a way to get a better margin direct. Hey, if you're selling your snowboard for $500 on the internet direct to a consumer, or you sell it for $300 to a shop who sells it for $500. Obviously, you're making more money. You're making a ton more money, right. But at the expense of the health of the overall industry, at the expense of people who can take somebody from a newbie or never ever or like 3 days on the snow, to a committed snowboarder who's, he's got a quiver of 2 or 3 boards and a couple of jackets, and he takes 6 trips a year out of Chicago, or lives in Denver and snowboards 40, 50 days a year. And goes through a snowboard a year because he snowboards 40, 50 days a year and rides it like he stole it instead of like, somebody who's being super cautious and doesn't know what they're doing. That's I would much rather people go into shops directly for their first couple of experiences. Again, the internet, it's a great tool. It's good, and we have some great customers online. But I would love to drive people, as much as I can into our brick and mortar retailers too.
Yep. So what do you see? I mean, you have a pretty good handle on this. What do you see as like the 3 biggest challenges for the snowboard industry to perpetuate its longevity into the future?
Wow. That's a good one. Well, I would absolutely say, direct sales and taking that retailer channel out.
That value added out. Right, there is a value that's added at the retailer, and that's the thing that's overlooked.
Value added. That's a great way to put it, and that's actually one of my customers when we met at SIA. He was like, here's how we do, it's exactly value added. Those guys, they'll give you a free wax or whatever. They'll tune your board. They'll you bring it in after you ride a couple of times. They'll make sure all the bolts are tight on your bindings. That's value added. And I would not. The other end is, hey, I bought this on the internet. Can you mount my bindings for me? Yeah, that'll be $35.
Yeah.
Isn't that free? Did you buy it here? No.
Yeah. Okay, so there's one.
You can't blame the shop for that.
No.
Other challenges. I would honestly say other cool and not so cool activities that are out there. I mean, it seemed like up till a couple of years ago, skiing was grabbing a lot of the younger consumers back from us.
Yep.
After they stole our side cuts, they stole our customers, And the whole free ski movement and this and that. Hey, that's all well and good.
Skiing's easy to learn now, not like it was when we were kids, where you'd be like, oh, now I'm a beginner, now I'm an intermediate, now I'm an expert. It's like with snowboarding, by your second or third day, you're riding down blue or black trails,
Absolutely. And hey, wow, that side cut kind of works. Yeah, let's take our side cuts from 40-meter radius to 8-meter radius. Wow, turning's fun now. As far as
you guys are realists because you guys make skis too in your factory, correct?
We press skis for Icelantic and Fatty Puss, amongst others.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, when your factory is not busy, then you're losing money.
Yep.
So
the overhead
we are
stays the
pragmatic
same
that way. But the cachet of skiing, and believe me, I love my skiing brethren. Honestly, I want people to enjoy winter, but we need to bring the cool back into snowboarding. And the good thing is, our kids' sales have gone up tremendously. We came in and our competitors have always had smaller boards, Burton Chopper and all that, and Flo's good with some kids boards. We came in with the Shredder. We expanded the Bantam and the Starlet, which are kind of 119 to 136, and we even have a mini Proto now. But I am seeing a lot more parents out with their kids on tiny snowboards. So these are parents that are 35, 40. They grew up snowboarding kind of before this, the 20 to 25-year-olds now, and they're teaching their kids to snowboard, and I'm seeing a lot more kids. And it's good that Burton's got that Riglet program and all that. I mean, we need to introduce kids to snowboarding. There's a great little operation out here called Shredder in Boulder, and they got a facility in Lafayette and Wheat Ridge, and they teach kids how to get on slope in a very comfortable environment. They've got dry slope there. The kids aren't cold, but when they get up on the hill at Eldora or at Loveland, they're ready to go. Mm-hmm. And so participation, in our sport, and other things are knocking us out too. A lot of kids nowadays, they'd rather spend time looking at either their phone or their PlayStation or whatever instead of doing something real. And it's that's honestly I think that's hurting our society in a greater, and I can't get along without my iPhone, obviously, as far as being a salesperson. But I don't want to spend every day on that. I want to do stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, it's like it came into stark clarity for me this year. I was up in Alaska. I built a cabin last year up there, and but there's no internet, right? There's no way, and there's no phone service at my cabin. And so, like, literally, it's like all of a sudden you feel almost naked when you can't have your phone, when you can't have your internet, when that's not even an option. And it's just like it comes, the realization comes that it's like, wow, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have thought twice about not having a cell phone. And today, it's like you can't live without it almost.
1992, 93, whatever. I did, hey, I got to call my wife. I leave a message at the house from this payphone, it's honestly, it's a great relief sometimes to shut that thing off and get away from it. But yeah, it's a time suck, and I'm as guilty of it as I spend way too much time looking at social media or whatever and not interacting with people for real.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something that hurts. And I would say honestly, I don't know if I want to get into the quality thing or not, but quality of goods has gotten very good. But there's product out there that, if you were buying this as a first-time snowboarder, you are going to quit the game because it's a BOS 2000. It's not quality material. And you see people get into like crappy packages or buy stuff that isn't right they go into like some department store type thing and buy a snowboard or buy something on the internet that isn't even appropriate, and it winds up being coat hanger in their room,
Yeah.
So I would say information, and again, that stems back to going to shops and getting the right setup when you start out. If you don't take time to find out what's right for you, take baby steps, maybe rent a few times. Honestly, when you're just starting out to snowboarding, take a lesson and rent from a quality shop that has honestly has an incentive to down the line sell you something. Because they're going to get you on the right equipment. They're going to listen to you. That board didn't work out. All right, let's try this with these boots instead. And you'll dial in your package a lot quicker. Find out what kind of a snowboarder you are, what you like and what you don't like. Again, if I didn't have that grand desire to skateboard on the snow when I was, 27, 28-year-old person in Chicago, suit and tie, I wouldn't have lasted through my first couple of days snowboarding. I really wanted to snowboard, and it wasn't easy back then by any means until you got into powder on that thing.
Yeah.
I can remember like going out to snowbird with my buddies from Chicago. We get a house in Sandy. We go up a different canyon. Where we go? We're going to Brighton today. Cool. I can snowboard. And when there was powder, I would blow my buddies away. And then all of a sudden in the afternoon when it's hard pack and they're killing me and I'm suffering that first, being on the right equipment, obviously that was what I had to work with back then in the 80s. But, there was just no comparison in powder. Like snowboarding in powder, if I didn't get a powder day or two my first couple of weeks snowboarding, who knows, I might have hung it up. But that powder experience, God, that's...
Never gets old, does it, Gags?
Does not get old, Mark, not whatsoever.
And the thing is like, I'm 45, I'm a little younger than you, but I'm still like what I would consider in the buzzard class. But I still progress every year in powder. I get a little bit better. I challenge myself in new ways, and I've never given up on that progression in snowboarding. And I can relate that directly back to riding powder. Whereas like if I was trying to just progress myself with jumps or rails, hitting a metal rail hurts. And I might not still be as involved as I am today, but man, I still progress every single year and have new and relevant life experiences every year just through powder and snowboarding. You know?
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of times it's just like riding a new area.
Yeah.
Or hiking a new area at your old mountain, some place that just opened up or that you'd never hiked before. The progression to me, I love to try to hit something new, something different, every year. I'd never been up to Bozeman, and this year I got to ride Bridger with Jay Moore, man. I mean, what could be better than that?
Cool. That's the locals local.
That's the locals local, man. The Red Leader is and
Red Leader.
He is absolutely.
Is that his hair or just a nickname?
No, that's what I call him anyway, man. Red Leader.
Okay.
He is an amazing person to tour Bridger with, man. He just and Big Sky too. Like he just took me all over, and I'd never been to those two areas. And
what a beautiful part of the country too.
Oh, amazing part of the country. I'd never been in Montana. Went up to Red Lodge. I went up to Bridger. Went up to Big Sky, and it just blew. It honestly pissed me off that it didn't go there when I was younger. Because if you don't now, you'll be 1 year older when you do.
Oh, Warren Miller. Oh, yeah. Hey, Warren Miller had some genuine wisdom, skier, snowboarder, whatever. Right?
Well, she had an hourglass figure, but her time ran out. His best line.
Yeah, man. I grew up on those movies, but that actually helped inspire me. And it's kind of weird to me that there actually isn't anything like that in snowboarding, that just kind of telling those stories of adventure and life experience. And with like those movies when I was a kid anyway, it wasn't just trick after trick after trick or gnarly. It was like, oh, and then we went to Chamonix and we had croissants and coffee, and then look at these people eating it coming off the lift, and it was like really like the whole spectrum of skiing was in those movies, and it made me feel like it was a lifestyle. Right?
Hear that, filmmakers? Old is new. Standard films, TB1, TB2, they kind of started out a little bit that way.
Yeah, Fall Line was like that too, where like they were doing like road trips across Europe, and like Steve Graham and Damian Sanders and those guys like doing road trips, and they tell little stories on the way. Roadkill.
Jerry and Artie.
One of the best movies ever, snowboarding, in my opinion, because it actually, to me, it walked that line between the culture and the lifestyle. It was aspirational, but the riding was sick. That's where Jamie Lynn got introduced, and a few other riders. And man, that was just like such a radical departure from the Mac Dog trick. And I actually was sitting with Mac Dog. He was staying at my house. We were filming for, I think, Upping the Ante. That's how old I am. And we watched that movie with Mac Dog, right? And he was so pissed. It was filmed all in 16. He like threw his 8mm cameras away and went right to 16. But that was only half the story actually with Roadkill. It wasn't just the quality of the footage in 16. It was also that there was a story. There was more. There was more to chew on. You know what I mean? Like in the back of your mind, there was more to chew on with that.
There was a car picking everybody up and then patching out.
I mean, that's what we were doing back then. We were going on road trips on the weekends. We were weekend warriors. I was in high school, and I wanted to go to the best mountains within driving distance, and so that's what we did. We'd all saddle up on Friday night and come home on Sunday night unless it was snowing, in which case I would call my mom and be like, the roads are too bad to come home right now.
The roads are bad.
So I've got this theory, guys.
I pulled that one with my wife, but I think it was more like, honey, I don't think I should drive. I've had too many beers.
That didn't fly when you were in high school.
It didn't fly that well with my wife either, but I pulled it off.
Yeah.
Hey folks, if you're tuning into the Snowboard Project, please support an independent voice in snowboarding media. Go to patreon.com/the Snowboard Project and support an independent voice in snowboarding media.
So I got this theory that, like, you learn from your mistakes and your successes push you forward, right? They keep you going, but your mistakes are what the hard lessons that you learn, where you're like, I'll never do that again. Oh man, I'll never do that. So tell me, I mean, your successes though are apparent to the outside world. Your failures are something that a lot of people really hold closely. What are some of those failures for you, Gags? I don't know any of them.
Damn. You're asking great questions, Mark. I would say I would love to take back some words I might have had with people at times.
Just too heated.
Just too
caught
heated,
up in that moment, right? You were like mad, and you had other things going on too that were making you even more mad.
I could have been, but. I've probably pissed a few people off by being very direct and telling them exactly how I feel about them. And some people, honestly, it wasn't a loss. It wasn't a failure. But,
East Coast people stab you in the chest. West Coast people stab you in the back.
I grew up East Coast.
Me too. But then I moved to California. Wow, that was an eye-opener.
I moved west until I got it right. Golden, Colorado was just perfect for me.
Right.
But you know what? I would say, I can look back and say, you know what? Doing it all again. Maybe I would have stayed as a rep and stayed outside and enjoyed that freedom and made some more money. But honestly, I don't think that was a mistake long run, because my relationship with my son flourished through that. He knew I was there all the way, through high school, and he went to CU. So, and again, we just road tripped, with my wife, but through Belgium, man. I wouldn't have traded that off for the world for him to go become a brewer and all that. He got a degree in physics minor in astrophysics.
Wow.
Man, my failures.
Chip off the old block.
Chip off the up. He's got my sense of humor anyway, and so I'll consider that one you guys might consider that a failure, but I consider that a success. Gosh, I would say you know what? A couple of failures with just in terms of a few of the turns I took early days in snowboarding, and maybe I should have been a little bit less focused on some of the party and more focused on the business end of it, tucking away money, saving money, and whatnot. But,
or if you would be the next Burton if that were the case.
God, it is a tough question. I'm bummed that I never felt like I'm out of the family, but leaving the 686 people was very tough.
Mike West is amazing.
Mike West and Doug and all the sales reps there, James and
amazing people.
Jake Gatlin and Dave Graves and I are still. Dave was my sub rep for the longest time until he took over Utah and now Colorado. Amazing people over there, and that was the thing that probably hurt the most, was leaving 686.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't consider that a failure. Probably not pushing that shop guy at the summer camp to make that snowboard earlier. Hey, who knows? If I had actually pursued that, maybe I would have driven my own snowboard company into the ground or something. Who knows?
But would have that really been a success? It sounds like you were prudent or at least mature enough at the time to make the right decisions, whereas guys like me 10 years younger than you were just looking for that pie in the sky or whatever, right? And you were probably more rational, just having a little more experience in life and having done things you didn't like and did like before that.
Absolutely. No, I mean, one of the things I did as I started making money, I tucked money aside for my kid's education. His education's all paid for.
Wow.
You know? And,
good dad.
you know, and you might say, you know, Silver's, we put a lot on him, a lot of responsibility on him. But in my opinion, for kids to come out of college with $150,000 worth of debt around their neck is bullshit.
Yeah, indentured servitude.
It is. It puts you right in debt it puts you right where they want you.
Right. You have to go take the very first job you can find, and then you're miserable just making sure you can make your bills meet. You know?
It's fun. Yeah, he's not making John J. Gottrock's dollars brewing, but he doesn't have a student loan to pay off, and he's got friends that he went through college with that, like, they're making, you know, good $40,000 a year right out of college, but they hate their jobs. They honestly don't like their job. Yeah. It's like, you know what? I walked away from a VP of a headhunting. You know, my career in Chicago was probably pretty well set, you know, financial security. But it was worth it to have a job, you know, first off, working at Aggression and getting to meet these people, you know, kind of, I don't know, going back into this Peter Pan, whatever, you know, I'm not going to grow up kind of thing. But applying a grown-up's perspective to the sales end of it allowed me to be successmo. Cool. You know, looking at it from like, listen to your customers, do what they say, respond. You know, I don't want my son to like suffer in a shitty career for a while just because he's got to make money. You know, and he's pursuing his, and like, do you like your job? He's like, I absolutely love it. I love who I work with. And like, you know, hey, don't sweat it for a little while. Yeah. Do this. Make sure, you know, get your name out in that, and then you can write your own ticket.
Yeah.
You know, I do feel like I could work for a lot of different people in the snowboard business, and it wouldn't be the same for me. I mean, again, I love Never Summer. I love what we do. I love who we are. But, you know, if you bust your chops for a while and develop a reputation for being smart, ethical, and hardworking, you can write your own ticket.
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings me to my final question for this two-part interview, which is, you know, there's a lot of kids out there who are passionate about snowboarding. They're going to school, they're trying to figure out their path in life, but yet snowboarding, it seems like there's a lot of guys in the industry who aren't going to, like, move on to something else. They're like, okay, well, I got my job in the industry, I'm going to stay here, right? And so it doesn't seem like there's a lot of room at the bottom for people to prove themselves and kind of gradually move their way up. What kind of advice do you have for kids who are like, man, if I could do anything with my life, it would be to be involved with the snowboarding industry? What advice would you have for those kids?
I would say, you know, if you want to be involved, then find a way to be involved, and it's not always going to be at like it's not always going to be that you're getting paid. All right. I started out, you know, again, went from being a VP of a headhunting firm to $6 an hour. I took a huge step backwards to go 2 steps forwards and to love what I do. People are like, how do I get to become a rep? There is no set path. The way I got into it was I self-financed, and I just like worked a couple of jobs and worked in a shop. Way a lot of reps hire people is they know somebody from a shop. The guy from the shop comes in, dude, you're repping for XYZ company? Yeah. Dude, do you need any help at the next show? I mean, dude, I don't want to get paid. I just want to learn how to do this stuff. Mm-hmm. Hey, you might wind up hauling the rolling racks in and setting up snowboards on a rack and then sitting at a trade show for a day, or turning screws on a Saturday and a Sunday, getting up at 6 a.m., driving up to a ski hill when it's butt-ass cold, and, freezing your fingers off until they crack, turning screwdrivers.
Right, with a smile on your face the whole time.
With a smile on your face, and, hopefully you get some laps out on the hill with the crew, but you got to start somewhere. And it's usually at the bottom. Yep. And you have to be willing to make that sacrifice. So if somebody wants to get involved in the business, approach the local rep of, work in a shop and get to know the reps that come into the shop. Approach one whose product that you like. Like, dude, do you need any help at the next trade show or demo? Can I help out? Or, at this event, we've had Snowboard on the Block here a couple of years, and hey, I can haul your booth in and help you man it. That's how you get to know people. Hey, can I work the sale this Labor Day weekend for you? Cool. You learn the product. You get to know the other reps. You have to be willing to start essentially for nothing.
Really? Because I was just going to give everyone your cell phone number. You used to be a headhunter. You're obviously accomplished in the industry. Just call Gags. He'll get you a job.
My cell phone number is 303.
I'm just kidding. You know that. But anyhow, hey, that was a great interview, Gags. I mean, I learned a lot, about your background right there. And, we've had some great times in snowboarding, and let's keep them going, man. Let's keep this sport growing, right? Let's make a future here.
If you and Jay get out here for I don't know what I don't know if there's a kind of a Crankworks or Freeride event out here this year, but I'm all about getting up on the mountain bike with you and Jay again too.
Yeah.
And with Brad's just a freaking legend, dude. Now ever since I met him in Alaska and went on my first couple of heli bumps with him, it's like I see that guy everywhere.
Yeah, right. I mean, he is everywhere. That's why he was actually just in Fort Collins, I want to say.
Oh no shit.
Air Force Academy.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. No, that's Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs. I'm sorry, but what a dick he didn't call you. No, he was working the whole time. But yeah, why don't you tell that little story about Alaska, because that's just an amazing story. Maybe that's a great way to finish the interview is your trip to Alaska and just that experience you had heliboarding in Alaska. That's a cool one.
Oh my God! Well, just waking up on Thompson Pass and looking around was just mind blowing. Terrain for days. Not only that was the first time I'd driven an RV.
Hey, there's all sorts of new life experiences up there, all sorts of new ones.
Yeah, go rent like a 32-foot RV and then drive it a couple hours across Alaska, park it, and camp in it for 8 days.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've never done anything like that. But, it was a great little introduction, and I took it baby steps. I mean, my first day was just kind of getting oriented and signing up for, some of the like classes on ropes and just, crevasse management, all that good kind of stuff. And then, I did a cat day up there, and then just the next couple of days I'd get up like 7:30 in the morning, and one of my team riders would bump me up just under the
bump you up on a snowmobile for those who
on a
don't know.
snowmobile, and get some early morning runs, and then it was kind of funny because I could tell that the Black Ops guys, they watch you, and the first heli bumps were on, the whole cat day was like it was super mellow. It's like, when are we gonna get on some steep shit? The last run was steep, but the first heli bumps with Brad, and
they're assessing your skill when they're putting you on that mellow terrain in Alaska. It's because they're kind of sizing up how you listen, how you manage, if you're gonna like ragdoll or shoot the moon or take a wrong turn.
Gotched.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, everyone gets sized up when they get there, whether you're a pro or whether you're a sales manager for a company, whatever. I mean, you get sized up, and
actually, I could tell that was kind of what was happening, and when I did heli bumps with was Joey Martin and Brad and I forget who else was with us, and it was like mellow terrain, but it was just good couple of bumps, like 4,000.
It was
powder. I am not. And then the next day, it was like all of a sudden, oh, this is a lot more. And it's kind of funny. Joey Herman was telling me, it's like, I'm like kind of riding through the slough that I had started. And is that guy going to be okay? And the guy is like smoking a cigarette. That guy going to be all right? Yeah. Okay. But, just being up on top by, was the tusk up there on top of by Python, and we were down on the other side, and I'm the last guy to drop on our second drop. And meanwhile, the chopper pilot Debo had gone, picked up another group, set them off on the peak across from us. And so, Styx drops and Austin Gibney drops, and then Joey goes, and I'm the last guy up there. I'm all alone. And all of a sudden I see this chopper coming right at me, and sure enough, Debo flies about 10 feet over my head. I'm all alone up there. It was just fucking mind-blowing, And then I ripped, honestly, a line that, like, I got head movies for days, riding that line was just, I don't think I've ever felt so alive. And it was a rad experience, Mark. I mean, you definitely.
That's why I did it. It wasn't for the money, that's for sure. I wanted to change people's lives with Pinnacle Life Experience, and I've heard it so many times from people like you that I really respect. That, like, that's why I kept doing it, despite the fact that the sponsorship was never easy, despite the fact that my kids maybe. I mean, that's kind of why I'm taking a little bit of a turn in my life, doing other things too. But sure. I do have responsibility in life. But man, it's hard to put a price. It's hard to measure, how you measure success. A lot of people think it's just money. I don't think so. I think it's actually like the experiences that you take with you.
I have like 3 snowboarding experiences that are just, just pop the top off my head. That are just like, they're all kind of on this equal, like, shelf or plane or whatever. That's just, and it's being up in Alaska on Thompson Pass for, 8-9 days. Going up to Baldface, that was just Jeff's got an amazing experience up there, and if any listeners haven't been up to Baldface, absolutely do that. And
you're gonna want to listen to my podcast with him, because I got really into the origin story, how it all came about, and everything. It's pretty interesting.
That's super rad. And yeah, Jeff's a great host, and being at the Baker Bank Slalom in my first time coming back with duct tape, and meeting Turget, and just being at the Baker Bank Slalom is way up there too. Just that's an amazing. I hope to get back there. I gotta get back in through the lottery, and that's a challenge.
What year did you win the duct tape?
It was the 26th running.
So that's like 5-6 years ago, something like that.
It's about 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
It was just, I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to Baker before. I came out to the Mission Ridge demo, and then we rolled out to Baker, and then the next year I came back, and unfortunately I did not make the Sunday. But I had a blast riding around the hill with my buddy Chair 5 Ed and Duran Laybourne and a bunch of guys, and
it's like the perfect excuse to go ride Baker, because Baker is so sick.
It is the perfect excuse, and that first time I was out there, the 26th running, and you don't know how you do. They don't post the times the second day, but I felt I ran a good run, and then Tim Eberly, my rep, and in the Northwest, and we went out. We hiked Shucks and Arm, went over the Beast. I got a great, out of bounds powder run. Earlier in the week, I had Mike Cummins, Matt and Temple's brother, show me like some of the lines at Baker and just like take me around, and it it was an awesome experience, man.
Yep.
And I highly recommend, that, Alaska, and Baldface. Honestly, if you can hit those 3 experiences in your snowboard career, you're doing pretty damn well.
Yeah, but you shouldn't do that in your first year.
No. I would say wait
Progression.
Yeah. Give it 2, 3, 4 years maybe.
Yeah. Cool.
Work your way up to it.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for your time, Gags. This has been, a very enlightening interview, and I really do appreciate your time. And honestly, Never Summer to me is a brand that really has the heart of snowboarding in its soul, because it's like you guys, the way that you guys treat shops, the way you, Gags, treat shops and value their contribution to the sport is on a level that I put above many of the other brands out there.
I appreciate that a lot, Mark. It's always good talking with you, and it's like, the one thing I can say on that is like always, stay in touch with people, even if you don't have an answer or you don't have the answer that they want. You're better off, talking with them and being direct and tell them exactly the way things are than bullshitting or just dancing around the issue, man. Just be straight up, and the more the more truths you tell, the less stories you make up, the less bullshit you have to remember. Integrity matters.
On behalf of Mark Sullivan and the Beeve, thanks for listening to the Snowboard Project. Remember, ride fast, take chances, dream big, and take action. And for God's sake, don't be a pussy. Don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.